Minister of Housing and Water, the Honorable Collin Croal.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is my honor to stand this afternoon in support of Budget 2024. Staying the course, building prosperity for all. Budget 2024 brings us to the verge of fulfilling our manifesto promises of 2020. Those promises were made when in the middle of the pandemic and the fight to protect our democracy following the successful no confidence motion. We saw that the people of our beloved Guyana suffered because the then government lacked vision, leadership, and above all, empathy for the struggles of the people. Today, I am proud that less than 4 years later, we can without a shadow of a doubt say we have stayed the course and we are building prosperity for every Guyanese. Mr. Speaker, only a few weeks ago, the successes of our rapid development was overshadowed by the threatened bygone era. But we saw the leadership that came from this PPPC government, led by His Excellency President Dr. Mohamed Irfan Ali. The world saw that though we might be little in number, we are giants in spirit, and together we rallied for our nation. Today, we can boldly continue the path to prosperity for all. Mr. Speaker, it is not by accident that we can boast a brand new 4-lane highway from Sheriff Street, Mandela Junction to Diamond. It is not by accident that we have started construction of the Ogle to Diamond 4-lane road, the Diamond to Busby Dam Creek 4-lane highways, the new Demerara Harbor Bridge, and the Linden to Mabura Road. It is not by accident that Guyana's real GDP is estimated to have grown by 33% overall in 2023. And it is certainly not by accident that the Ministry of Housing and Water has allocated over 30,000 house lots to date. It is, Mr. Speaker, because of astute leadership, vision, strong commitment to the betterment of the people of Guyana, and maths, because 33 will always be greater than 32. Mr. Speaker, as I continue my support for 2024 budget, it is important that I put into context the development of the housing and water sector from 2020 to present. The sector at that time, as we all know, was a dismal failure. Subsidizing housing was trapped in a bureaucracy under the stewardship of the coalition government. Despite the housing and water sectors being or seeing 3 ministers, a watered-down department, the APNUAFC could not create the conditions critical to the sustainability of the sector. So starved of public-private partnerships and burdened with punitive taxes, the distribution of titles and transports, the allocation of house lots declined dramatically between 2015 and 2020. There was a backlog of 68,000 house lots applicants in 2020. Mr. Speaker, the water sector did not fare better. 70% of the water produced during the 2015 to the 2020 period was wasted, and despite its bloated employment, there was no notable improvement in the delivery of water by GWI, nor was there any significant increase in access to water, especially in the hinterland areas. But even before, we saw fully the gravity of the challenges left by the APNUAFC at that ministry. We made several commitments to the people of Guyana relevant to the housing and water sector. Chief among them was the reversal of VAT on building materials, our commitment to allocating $50,000 in 5 years, the reduction in the processing time for applicants, the construction of more main and access roads, build a bypass road with connections to Mocha, Eccles, invest in support in infrastructure in new and existing housing schemes, provide affordable housing financing for home ownership through increased access to loans, promote home ownership among youths and young professionals, facilitate partnerships with the private sector, reinstate water subsidies for pensioners, expand treated water to more areas and the entire coastline, upgrade the transmission and distribution of water in urban, rural, and hinterland areas, and enhance and expand the hinterland housing program, among others. Mr. Speaker, as I stand before the Honorable House today, I am pleased to say that we have already achieved more than 70% of these goals. We committed to 10,000 lots per year. We have, as I said, over 30,000. We have completed infrastructure works in more than 50 new housing schemes since August 2020. More than 23 kilometers of highways, 4-lane highways have been completed, and works are in progress on the Schooner to Crane 4-lane and the Great Diamond to Busby Dam Craig. Where are highways, housing scheme, and highways done by our friends on that side of the house? Shamelessly, Mr. Speaker, only 3 housing schemes were developed by the APNUAFC between 2015 to 2020. Mr. Speaker, the opposition expends a great deal of time chasing after scandals. They seem to relish the drama that surrounds progress. They act as if the gaps with the bureaucratic system are only present when they are not in power. How many scandals did this country not witness when they were in office? There was the Durban Park Gate, Parking Meter Gate, Plane Gate, and of course, Rig Gate. And while they are singing about family, friends, and favored, they are conveniently forgetting that their own minister was removed when it was discovered that her husband was benefiting from contracts in her own ministry. Mr. Speaker, our housing priorities are not just about wood and brick buildings. We are investing in our people. New financial interventions were developed to make the homeownership process easier and accessible. We were aware of the hardship some allottees experienced trying to access loans to build their homes. And we were acutely aware that many of the young professionals wanted to own their own home, but also those had challenges. So we collaborated as a government with the Ministry of Finance and the banking sector to make access to loans easier and faster. This collaboration bore several fruits. Reduction in residential mortgage interest rates to all lending institutions. Review of the New Building Society Act to allow it to raise its mortgage ceiling from $12 million to $20 million and offer of lower interest rate on mortgages. GRA has raised the mortgage interest relief ceiling from $15 to $30 million and interest rate reduction at commercial banks. This in turn, Mr. Speaker, has made low-income mortgages more affordable. We have, in short, Mr. Speaker, and may I say the F's, we have, in short, Mr. Speaker, facilitated faster financing for our people so that they can have their own homes. Mr. Speaker, providing subsidized housing for the citizens of Guyana is a clear and present priority of this government. It is the mandate that guides the Ministry of Housing and Water, as was obtained since the formation of the CHPA, Central Housing and Planning Authority, in 1948. The primary objective has been to provide lands to eligible Guyanese for residential purposes. But the CHPA has evolved to provide complete houses and commercial industrial lands. Mr. Speaker, when we got in 1992, there was no housing policy or department. In the early stages, the lands provided had rudimentary infrastructure. That is, a basic road that was mostly bricks. Utilities had to be accessed from the individual companies by the landowner. There was no cohesive approach to developing the housing sector. Since 1992, we began to modify and improve the housing program of 1948. Today, we are establishing well-developed housing schemes that include roads, bridges, drainage, electricity, and access to potable water. Mr. Speaker, the opposition harps about preferential systems that exist as regards to allocations, but they know that house lot allocation, while not an exact and perfect science, it is based on a few things: availability of land, development of the land, and of course, an application. The categories of lots range from low, moderate, middle, and high income, and these are allocated based on the applicant's income and some other factors that are taken into consideration. The same applies, Mr. Speaker, to the houses. In some cases, applicants themselves have requested a change in the category assigned because their financial circumstances may have changed, and those requests were considered and facilitated as far as possible. Mr. Speaker, I want to share with this House the most recent costs for house lots according to their categories. So, for example, from 2015 to present, low-income lots ranged from $92,000 to $150,000. Moderate income house lots from $300,000 to $700,000. Middle income from $800,000 to $2 million. High income lots from $2 million to $6 million. And for example, for houses, the low income 2-bedroom flats range from $3 million to $5.5 million. Moderate income from $7.5 million to $9.5 million. And the young professional houses, $15 million to $20 million. Mr. Speaker, each category is further broken down by region. So the cost of a low-income house lot on the east bank of Demerara is more than one that you may find in Region 10. Similarly, a low-income 2-bedroom flat you can find in Region 6 will be $5.5 million, but one in Letem is being done at $3 million. The differences are not because of some arbitrary or manipulated system, as the opposition likes to tout. The prices of lots are determined based on the infrastructure, the land size, and market prices. But it's important to remember, Mr. Speaker, that these costs are also heavily subsidized by the government, as was just outlined by my colleague minister. What is interesting, Mr. Speaker, is that despite the assumptions by the opposition that citizens face financial constraints to acquire house lots, suggesting that the cost is too high, the demand for house lots in each of the category far outweighs the supply, and so too the demand for access to easy finance has skyrocketed. As a solution for the demand for affordable loans, the Ministry of Housing and Water and CHPF collaborated with the banks to expedite applications for mortgages. And President Dr. Mohamed Irfan Ali has engaged the banks to lower their interest rates. In 2020, interest rates were 4%, 5.9%, and 6.25%. Last year, or by the end of 2023, following intervention by this government, rates were lowered to 3.5%, 3.75%, and 5.7%.
Honorable Minister, I have the Honorable Member, Ms. Annette Ferguson, on her feet.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand on Standing Order 40. Earlier, Mr. Speaker, you ruled.
And what 40 says? Go ahead.
41-7, Mr. Speaker. Earlier, you ruled that it is not appropriate to use the President's name to influence this House. So the Honorable Member just made reference to His Excellency Dr. Mohamed Irfan Ali, the President. So I'm asking that that be expunged from the records, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Point of order upheld. Honorable Minister, we have to, 41-7 says, the President's name shall not be used to influence the Assembly. Honorable AG, you're not the judge here. You're an advocate.
May I resume? Thank you. Having outlined the lowering of the interest rates, Mr. Speaker, so for example, as was mentioned, 2020, New Building Society received, while they disbursed over $3.5 billion, they received over 669 applications. And by end of last year, they received applications of over 3,000. This is the power of the PPP government, Mr. Speaker. We care about the people, and we have considered the constraints that they might face. We didn't bring a motion to Parliament or ask for a select committee. We knew what we had to do. The banks are now lending as much as 100% of the cost to build a house, and the applicants can use their lot as equity. In 2020 and prior, Mr. Speaker, applicants had to have both cash and land to be considered for a loan. That has changed. Our government has made this happen. The investments that this government has made in the housing sector is worth it, and no amount of nitpicking by the opposition will stop us from realizing the goals of 50,000 allocations by 2025. Mr. Speaker, there is unprecedented growth in the housing sector since our return to office. The sector is energized, stakeholders are motivated, and the banks are committed to the support of a more flexible approach to the loan process. But we are not only focused on allottees, we are also ensuring that allottees can maximize their investment. In this regard, we have distributed close to 7,000 land titles and transports. But armed with their titles and transports, those homeowners can now approach the banks for new or additional loans which they can use to match and make their lives more comfortable. This year, we will at a minimum distribute a further 5,000. We are also expected to complete a minimum of 2,000 houses in the year of 2024. Mr. Speaker, under the Hinterland program, Mr. Speaker, much has been said about the Hinterland housing program. And the Honorable, who's not here, Don Hastings, spoke about our village, Kako. that she was instrumental as the minister then to have some houses constructed in her village. But Mr. Speaker, the records will show that the APNU-AFC government built 21 hinterland houses. The additional houses for the hinterland was the completion of an IDB loan-funded housing program that was started under the then housing minister, who happens to be the president. Mr. Speaker, but what is our plan for the hinterland housing program? We have already started for the construction of over 450 hinterland houses, Mr. Speaker. As I speak, contracts to the tune of $400 million. And let me give you a breakdown. Region 1, Warapoka, Haimaruni, 5 miles Kamaka in Maruka, Smith, and the honorable member who is not here too, Sherrod Duncan, said, and I challenge him, he called the village of Kukrit. Well, the honorable prime minister who was here will tell you the community of Kukrit was done under this PPP tenure. You know how we came up with that village? Because it was a part of our plan to relocate persons who were living on the waterfront. It was a request that came from the CDC and came here and being dishonest. The villages of Smith Creek, Arukamai, Inbetero, Savannah, Blackwater, Canal Bank, Port Kaituma, Arkaka, Barmita can speak about it for the intention to have hinterland housings. In Region 9, for example, and I'm not speaking about the LETEM program, Region 9, Crashwater, Yarkarinta, Tiger Pond, Young Paru, Kwatata, Napi, Shiriri, Rupanau, Sand Creek, Shia, Parabara can speak about hinterland housing under the PPP tenure. Kangaruma in Region 7, Isinaru, Umanik, Quibanang can speak about hinterland housing. And the Honorable Member Don Hastings said yesterday that nothing is being done for Region 7. Mr. Speaker, I have here, this is happens to be the Minister of Housing and Water in the village of Quibanang. And the headline says, 40 million housing program announced for the Quibanang village. And the Honorable Member said nothing for Region 7. I may continue to give some more areas for hinterland. Kaibarupai, Tusaning, Karsparu, Marwau, Campbelltown. Those are areas that can speak towards our hinterland program. Mr. Speaker, but even as we are allocating our house lots and building houses, we have introduced complementary interventions to help applicants. The Core Home Support Program in Sophia that saw construction of roads and school houses, as well as Parfait Harmony. These houses will go to the very poor and vulnerable. Mr. Speaker, our 2020 to 2025 manifesto sets out in no uncertain terms that one of our primary goals in these 5 years is the modernization of Guyana, especially in terms of its physical infrastructure and transport system. Investments in these areas will help to ease the traffic congestion on the main thoroughfares, as well as establish more social service facilities like hospitals, etc. I am very proud that within this very short period, we have accomplished so many highways. Investments like these do not happen in a vacuum. We have to identify and clear the paths and design developments, such as for commercial and residential housing around them. Like other big, bold investments, these are challenges. One of those is the matter of squatting. The Ministry of Housing has sought to ensure that wherever there are irregular settlements, particularly those in the path of roads or housing areas, that we pursue amicable solutions. Our approach is not piecemeal. We have devised a workable strategy to make the regularization of squatter settlements less combative And may I use this opportunity to respond to two accusations. Let me start with what is referred to as the Mocha Squatters Alignment. Mr. Speaker, it was over 5 years all those residents were aware and informed that they are required to be removed because they are part of the alignment for the future expansion of our country. Mr. Speaker, they were all engaged. They were offered compensatory package. They were given land free of cost by the state in return. Their titles were processed free of cost to all of them. So, Mr. Speaker, we will not therefore allow, and we could not allow 7 of those that refused to cooperate to allow the development of our country. Mr. Speaker, let me make a similar update has been touted for Hillfoot. Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure if this is a parliamentary language, but it is dishonest in this house.
No, that's the second time you're using dishonest.
Okay,
but it's
so
not. Okay.
it is not being truthful for members of the opposition to come to this house and lay at the feet of this government the removal of the squatters at Hillfoot. The land at Hillfoot is private ownership. That owner went to court and got a court ruling to remove the squatters on their land. It is this PPPC government that engaged those squatters and offered them an alternative location right in Swan. In collaboration with the Guyana Land Survey Commission, Mr. Speaker, we have made land available for those squatters, but that matter was purely a private matter that had nothing to do with government. Mr. Speaker, the establishment of the highways have created thousands of jobs for unskilled, semi-skilled, and skilled laborers. It has reduced traffic congestion on the East Bank Highway. It has improved roadway access for all existing and future communities along the East Bank Demerara corridor. And it has improved accessibility for Guyanese seeking to establish housing and businesses in new lands owned for residential, commercial, and industrial development adjacent to the highway route. Mr. Speaker, since 2020, we have been ensuring that we find solutions to reduce wait times and to make processes and procedures employed by the ministry be less cumbersome. To this, we have even begun the implementation of the single window platform, for which is almost completed. It is being tested as we speak. This platform will reduce wait time and operational costs for application permits. Mr. Speaker, I use this opportunity to respond, and I'm glad the honorable member is holding that picture. Please hold it higher for me. As I speak, Mr. Speaker, there are 30 persons who have pre-qualified, and on Monday, they will be seeing their new house to occupy them by the bank. Mr. Speaker, those are 2-bedroom houses that we have so much of demand for that we can't even respond to be able to all the applicants. Mr. Speaker, the honorable member speaks about LBI, the Honorable Ferguson. LBI will be an area or a location that will be an envy of many communities. You drive in the front, you have allocation for high-income house lots. To the right, already over 450 young professional houses under construction, for which the first 100 will be completed by the end of this fourth quarter. You go farther down to the left, you have development of malls and other amenities. But Mr. Speaker, if the honorable member is honest, and if that go now to LBI, I challenge the honorable member to tell me if when you drive into LBI now, you won't see posts that is being put up at the front of LBI. I challenge the honorable member. And already, the pipe network for the water infrastructure is in place. So Mr. Speaker, the honorable member is not being truthful. Again, well, it's not being kind to what it should be the right answer.
Not being
Mr.
kind
Speaker?
is very, very good, and I want to be very kind to you to give you enough time to conclude.
Sure. Mr. Speaker,
Not yet. Hold on.
Mr. Speaker,
Hold again.
Speaker, I know my friend and colleague is eager to carry on and very enthusiastic, and we would love for him to carry on. So I'll respectfully ask that he has time to conclude his presentation.
Honorable member, you have 5 minutes starting now to conclude.
Mr. Speaker, so when the honorable member comes and talk about housing sector, she must remind there whereby they only allocated 7,534, for which we had to put the infrastructure work in place to complete for those allocations done. Mr. Speaker, when the honorable member comes and talk about housing, they must come and tell this House that they left a backlog of 68,000 pending applicants, and although we have allocated 30,000 already in the system, we have 13,000 new applicants within this last 3 years. When the honorable member must come and speak on the housing sector, you must come and tell this House that we have allocated over 53% to the young people of this country. You must come and tell this House that over 45% are females who are interested in their own development. You must come and tell this House that for the low-income houses that we have constructed to date, over 43.3% are low-income houses. Over 29.2% are moderate-income houses. Over 20% are middle-income houses. So the point to note, Mr. Speaker, is that we are responding to the majority of the pending applicants. Mr. Speaker, I want to quote here, and there's always the talk about to make when you regularize or have to deal with squatting as we're doing something inhumane. It is a particular former minister on that side of the House that said on June 24th, and I have it here, in 2017 in Stabroek News, the squatting is illegal and outside of government's policy, stating that we will never encourage illegal activities. We are not going to continue to encourage. So we have to bring order. As a minister responsible for housing, I cannot continue to have or allow that kind of situation to continue in our Garden City, for example. We have to bring order. We have to clean it. We have to really make our city look great. We are happy, but I want to appeal to the people of Guyana. Stop this madness related to squatting. Stop taking advice from rebellious leaders who just want to have conflict and telling people to go and take the land and squat. You are not going to get life easy, because we cannot regularize if you are on the reserve, and if people just go and take a plot and gone crazy and squatting, then we are ready to do the survey. You'll find a house in the path. Mr. Speaker, it is a former minister of the APNU, AFC government that spoke those words about squatting. But they don't come here and talk about, the honorable member Ferreguero is gone, talking about Region 10. Mr. Speaker, this is a picture from yesterday, Amelia's ward, where the leadership of Linden encouraged persons to squat in Amelia's ward. This PPPC government will fix it before the year is out. Yesterday, we started showing house lots for persons, over 470 house lots that were allocated in Region 10 since we got into office. The AP and UAFC that speak so much that they love Region 10. In 5 years, only 300 plus allocations, less than what we did in the first 2 years in office.
And many of them went to members on the other side.
Mr. Speaker, quickly, in terms of water, much has been said already in statistics. But Mr. Speaker, we are working on a 5-year plan. And one thing you can be rest assured, by 2025, 90% of the coastland will be receiving treated water. By 2025, 100% of the hinterland will be receiving water. By 2025, all persons on the coastland will have access to treated water. And by 2025, we will see before 2025, we will see the implementation of the first wastewater treatment plant for the city of Georgetown. That is our vision, Mr. Speaker. That is our plan for the water sector. Mr. Speaker, in wrapping up, we have had in the housing and water far outweigh the challenge that have come up. But we are confident that, like before, we will excel in our stewardship of our budgetary allocation, and we will continue to make the dreams of owning homes by our citizens come true. I wish to offer heartiest congratulations to my colleague, Dr. Ashley Kumar Singh, and his staff for another well-devised budget. At the heart of this budget are the needs of our citizens and our government's vision to make Guyana better. Therefore, I am honored to give my unwavering support to Budget 2024, staying the course, building prosperity for all.
Thank you very much, Honorable